never cheated in my life. Are you kidding me? Because I said you're a thief. Because you stole a point from me.
A liar and a thief. Just some of the comments hurled at the umpire by Serena Williams during Saturday's controversial final. Her outburst cost her an entire game and effectively the championship to Naomi Osaka. Following penalties for coaching and smashing her racket, Williams claimed she was being penalised because of her gender.
Because I'm a woman, you're going to take this away from me?
Ladies and gentlemen and fans.
While her opponent's moment of glory was overshadowed by the crowd's displeasure with the umpire.
I'm here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality and for all kinds of stuff. And for me to say thief and for him to take a game, it made me feel like it was a sexist remark.
The Women's Tennis Association has backed her claims of sexism. Chief Executive Steve Simon saying the WTA believed that different standards had been applied to her in the final. Though newly crowned men's champion Novak Djokovic disagreed.
I don't see things as Mr. Simon does. I really don't. I think, men and women are, treated in this way or the other way, depending on on the situation. It's hard to generalize things, really.
But one of the greats in women's tennis, Billie Jean King, has shown her support for Williams, calling out what she called the double standard of treatment between the genders.
Well, I'm joined now from New York by Megan Greenwell, Editor-in-Chief of Deadspin Sports News. With me in the studio is Michelle Moore, sports consultant and former athlete herself. Welcome to both of you. Michelle, if I can turn to you first. Did Serena behave at all unprofessionally, or is this just an injustice?
I think that Serena behaved in a way which was really quite challenging for people to watch. She was really angry. She wanted to call out that injustice, and she did so. Do tennis players have to kind of really display that kind of aggression on court? No, we don't want them to, because there are codes and there are rules. But the reality is she felt that she had to call out that injustice, and she used her voice to do that. The problem is how everybody responded to that rage. And the double standard is how actually the umpire responds to male tennis players when they decide to throw tennis balls at them, when they decide to swear at the umpires. They're held to a different kind of standard.
OK. Michelle Moore, how would this have been treated if it were a male player? Can you hear me, Michelle? I think we've lost... Oh, Megan, we've lost Megan. Let's go back to you, Michelle. How do you think a male player would have been treated?
Well, even in the US Open, what's happened earlier on in the tournament, they have been given warnings, but not necessarily the code violations. So just last week, Djokovic actually called an umpire a bum, and he got a warning for it. So there's different standards that are being, at play here, and there isn't any consistency from the umpire. And Ramos, he kind of provoked the situation when he could have actually diffused it. And what Serena did is she stood up for herself. She called out an injustice and said that is sexism. And we need that. We need more players to do just that.
OK. We've got Megan back. I think I inadvertently called you Michelle. Apologies for that, Megan. John McEnroe, Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray, they've all been given penalties before. So why is this so different?
For sure, they absolutely have been given penalties. There is also a culture of you get a soft warning before you get the official warning, because when you get the official warning, of course, then the next penalty has to be a point penalty. And it's much more common to see those guys get the unofficial warning first. And it's also true that they don't usually take a penalty for yelling at a chair ump. There have been videos floating around this weekend of Andy Murray and Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal all having confrontations with this same chair ump, Carlos Ramos, and not being penalized for it. So there is, a sense that there is a little bit of a double standard here. And of course, Serena Williams has faced this her entire career. And I think she did reach a boiling point. I don't think she would be particularly thrilled about the way she handled it, but it's important not to see this in a vacuum, because she has been dealing with this type of thing her entire career, and this sense that there's a double standard.
Michelle, there is a broader issue in tennis, isn't there, about double standards? I mean, the idea that women are not allowed to change their shirts on court. How can that be dealt with?
Well, it's a really great point, because the reality is just not 2 weeks ago, the French player Cornet got a violation, a warning, a code violation for swapping her T-shirt around. And this is off the back of the catsuit debacle, and Serena wears her compression suit for health reasons, and again, that was called into question. So the bigger and broader debate is about Serena in particular, as a black athlete, using her voice to articulate what's unfair has created this bigger scrutiny. Her body is policed, she's not allowed to wear her tutu. Everything that Serena does, she gets that kind of media backlash. And it's a part of a bigger, broader conversation around athletes in the US in particular. When they use their voice, and black athletes, they're under greater scrutiny as a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, Colin Kaepernick, and everything that happens around the political stance that athletes choose to use. It's like they should be quiet. They should put up and shut up and play their sport, or just dance, or whatever it happens to be.
So do you think if Serena were a white woman, she would have been treated differently?
I think that there are different standards, and there are different ways of treating people according to their identity. Serena has consistently been treated badly and negatively. Her body has been policed, the body shaming that she's experienced, the racism. Just today, the Herald Sun, a newspaper from Australia, depicted her in a really racialised way. A racist cartoon was put in the newspaper that depicted her as her racial characteristics on a 1950s mammy character, which is completely offensive and disgusting. And so, yes, fundamentally, she will get treated differently to white female players.
Megan, hasn't this overshadowed the win of Naomi Osaka? This is a 20-year-old, half Haitian, half Japanese woman who's achieved something incredible, and we're not talking about that.
No, I think that's one of the real tragic outcomes of this. And you saw Serena Williams being the one doing the emotional labor to comfort Naomi Osaka. As she was just sobbing and the crowd was booing, Serena took the mic and said, "You're not going to do this to her. She needs to have her moment. She deserves this." And Osaka is a phenomenal player. She would have won the match anyway. She was just dominating Serena Williams, which is an incredibly rare thing to see. And she's absolutely the future of the women's game. And she, too, is a woman of color. She plays for Japan, but she was raised primarily in the United States.
Megan.
And she's half Japanese, half Haitian.